Team Panic. It is time to look at how the upgraded and now kind of bigger Exilis, if that was even possible, I mean, I guess it was, performed at ARC's November meet. So, as mentioned, we upgraded Exilis in a previous video. I will leave a link to that in the description and at the end card here. Basically, we put some nice big floppy wings on Exilis so that when it tips over, it doesn't go all the way over, and it should mostly tip back. It's not a perfect system, but it does work pretty well on the whole. Well, at least it did in testing, and here on the bench you can see it is not bad. But what we're looking at today is how it performed in combat, because we are going to have a look at its fights, as mentioned. So let's jump straight on into the first fight. Actually, sorry, we won't. Quick caveat here again, as with the A-League matches for ARC's November meet, the pits are down the whole time, so that is just going to be a thing that happens in every fight here. So now we'll jump on through into the actual fights, and our first fight is up against Push Monster, a puck-shaped wedge, which is kind of hard for me to grab a hold of.
2, 1.
As mentioned, yeah, Push Monster is a very hard shape for me to grab. The fact that all of the outside, other than the front, is kind of domed, doesn't really give anywhere for my lifter to grab a hold of, and that front is nice and low and wedge shaped, so it's very hard to get in underneath Push Monster, and yeah, just problems in that general area. The other thing that happened in this fight is that the wings seemed to be working. There was a couple of times where Exilis was pushed up and put into a compromising position by being up on the wedge of Push Monster, and the wings seemed to be doing the right job. He didn't, like, Exilis here didn't go over, which is good. That's a good sign. That is the type of fight that I have lost in the past by going up a wedge and landing on my side and being stuck. So that is a very, very big positive. The negative to this, though, is that going up near the walls is a bit of an issue. Interestingly, well, I guess almost catted perfectly, as it turns out. I catted Exilis to be as tall as the walls, and I've proved that this time round, because these wings slide perfectly over the walls. In fact, I probably need them to be a little bit higher so they miss the walls entirely, because driving next to the wall is a problem because it scrapes on the wings, which I didn't see coming at all. And yeah, if these were up just that little bit higher, I would be able to drive next to the wall way, way easier than I can at the moment. So at the moment, I can drive into the wall forwards, but if I try and drive along the wall or turn around near the wall, I get scraping and weirdness, and it affects the drive, basically. Which is not great, because you want to be able to drive the way you want to drive all the time and not have to worry about being too close to the wall. And yeah, we aren't going to be able to fix that in this competition. I mean, I probably could have ripped these off and moved them higher, but they are like super glued on and stuff, so I just figured it wasn't worth the effort, basically. And I didn't print spares, unfortunately, because otherwise I would have just cut them down and stuck the spares on top of the hubs or the leftover gumph on the top here. But if I'd printed spares, we definitely would have done that. I should have printed spares. Always print spares. Anyway, we did win that fight, as it turns out. We managed to get a new strategy going, which is to get in under Push Monster a little bit and then just give tiny little flicks by continuously spinning the weapon. That was enough to break traction, or continuously break little bits of traction and give us a good push and get him into the pit. So that I was actually quite happy about. This was a decent fight to start proving out these wings, which is good. Next fight up, we have a fight against Grabsa. This is a lone bot driven by a very small child who was new to the entire sport.
2, 1.
So a couple of things here. Yes, that fight did go the full 3 minutes. However, I thought it was going to be a draw, but then it got put down for me as a win because the event organizers were like, well, they're a new person and you flipped them back over a couple of times and gave them plenty of opportunity to stay in the fight. For all intents and purposes, if you were being purposefully mean, you could have just pushed them into the pit and that would have been one and done. So I did say that I was okay with it being a draw, but I think it did end up being put down as a win for Exelis here. Yeah, because, you know, they were new and they were young and I was like, yeah, whatever, I'm happy to have a bit of a longer fight and kind of get you back over, especially as that design does actually self-right. It's just that they were very, very new and hadn't been shown how to work the hammer properly or the grabber properly to flick the whole robot back over from being upside down. So, you know, theoretically they should have been able to do it on, I probably did do it in future fights. It's just that this was their very first fight with the robot. So, yeah, they didn't have the ability to do that in this one, and I helped them out a little bit. So there you go. The other thing that was interesting here is that the grabbing weapon was like perfectly sized to jam straight into the hub of my weapon, and there was a couple of times where they did that, grabbed hold of basically the aluminium bar that I used to run the weapon in Exelis and stop my weapon from moving, which was an interesting like quirk of the two geometries of the robots, I thought. Yeah, like I said, that was kind of cool, and I just wanted to point that out. It was very interesting to me. But like I said, win or draw, something happened here, but Exilus is moving on with no losses after 2 fights. And we are now going up against a robot called Hiccup. Now, I think I've mentioned Hiccup on the channel before, but I'm pretty sure we haven't fought Hiccup on the channel before, at least not one-on-one. Hiccup has been in rumbles with us in the past. Hiccup is built by Steve, a robot builder I have definitely mentioned on this channel before. He's also one of the members of Team Bolt, and Hiccup is incredible. Hiccup is a YOLO style blip flipper, which means that he is using the kind of twisted cord idea that Blip does, but rather than having a flywheel and a clutch and all those kind of fun things, he's literally just got a brushless motor, twisted cord up to his lever arm, and that is it. And it actually works.
2, 1, go!
Unfortunately, that wasn't a great fight to show off all that Hiccup could do. One of the problems that he has is that at this weight scale, he's using very small, very fast brushless motors, and it can get to a point where the cord gets so twisted that the motor cannot untwist it again, which is, yeah, a little bit annoying because that is what happened in this fight. After I got him up, he did get a couple of little flicks in, and you can see that his flipper arm doesn't move that far when he does his flicks, but it is definitely enough to pop 150 gram robots into the air, which is incredible considering what it is he's actually doing with this robot. It's very, very cool. I love Hiccup a lot. But yes, unfortunately after that, when he gets flicked over, his cords get all tangled up and he cannot self-right. He definitely can self-right from that position if his cords don't get tangled. And I gave him a flip back and then immediately actually flipped him back over again. I had thought that I'd let him go a little bit longer than that, but no, I turned him back over immediately. And yeah, he was saying to just leave him because, oh, no, that's not fair. He was saying that he couldn't get back over and that if I wanted to, I could flip him back again. But I had given him one, and in my mind and in the fact that fight time is always a little bit different to real time, I thought that I'd flipped him back over and then had given him a bit more time, but no, I'd flipped him back over immediately. I probably could have put him back on his wheels and kept the fight going, but yeah, in the end, his flipper was out of commission at that point, and when it gets tangled up like that, it does actually need to be, I think, as far as I know, it needs to be like unwound by hand a little bit to get it back to actually being a working flipper again. So anyway, at the end of the day, that wasn't the greatest showing for Hiccup. It was a pretty good showing for Exilus. We managed to flip and even stack Hiccup on its back one time. Also, big props to Steve for that because his designs do have a rounded back on them, but he's also got it set up so that, like, the way he got back down was flicking the wheels back and forth fast enough, and that was just enough gyro movement to be able to flick Hiccup back down onto its wheels, which that's really cool because, yeah, I mean, actually no, he was able to use the flipper after that, so he could have, I think, used the flipper to give himself a kick as well. Either way, plenty of options for him to get back down off of that one. But we got the W on that fight, and we are now almost out of our round robin bracket. We have one more fight to go, and this is against a robot called Flatpack, who we fought in the B League last time with Run For It here. And we had a hard time against Flatpack with Run For It because Flatpack has two little wedges right at the very edge, and somehow they are incredibly low.
2, 1, go!
So it turns out our problem against flat pack with Run For It was purely a geometry thing. Because their wedge was wider than our wedge, they were getting under us a lot more, I think. Because Exilus's wider wedge that isn't as sharp as Run For It's was able to get under flat pack a considerable deal more. There was lots more flipping in that fight. I mean, I never managed to capitalize on any of those. There was a couple of decent pushes and there was that one stack up against the wall, but I wasn't really able to do too much when I had him flipped around, which is unfortunate. That's something I definitely need to work on. However, yeah, trying to control weapons and drive while in cast is a little bit interesting. Not that I'm saying that hugely negatively impacted my driving. I don't think I would have done super better with my actual hand back again, especially as I do drive left-handed normally anyway. I'm one of those people that I drive left-handed and I weapon operate right-handed. I think mostly because video games, moving is usually always left stick and weapons and stuff is always normally right, so I carried that through into combat robots, and I'm very glad I did now because it means I can still drive fairly well most of the time. And yeah, I just didn't capitalize on my flips that I got on flat pack in this fight. The other thing that happened too is that we got stuck over top of flat pack. That is because there is this little standoff out the back here on Exilus, which is because all the electronics and Gumph are kind of stuck up in this box here, which is a little bit annoying. I think one of the things I want to do is rebuild Exilus. It would be really, really nice to reposition some of the mass and stuff, redo the shape so I don't have to have big old wings. I think also probably redo the design entirely so that all of these carbon fiber spars can get removed and basically have it be a fully 3D printable design, because then I can release the files and you guys out there can build your own versions of Exilus. And in doing so, I might actually move all of the electronics from this box out the back up around the weapon mechanism or up into the spars on the side that hold the weapon up, because in doing so, you remove a lot of this weight from the back and you don't need this standoff, because this standoff is a pain. It's a real pain. Getting stuck over people and stuck in people with this standoff is just annoying, and something needs to be done about it. So either moving all of the weight up further forwards, or changing up this standoff to be kind of centered and a bit thicker on the end so it doesn't get stuck in people as easily. Something needs to happen, and again, there will probably be a version 2 of Exilus sometime in 2023. I don't know exactly yet, because Exilus version 1 still works really well, and it is still performing very, very well. And I've got some other ideas for some big robots that are going to be a little bit more wild and interesting. So I kind of want to throw some of those together before we get back to Exilus here and do a version 2, which again, I will release as public files for all of you out there to grab hold of and use, because I think that's going to be cool to see some more very big antweights running around the place. Anyway, going back to the flat pack fight, the end of the fight, I almost pit him in the last second, but did not fully manage to capitalize on that, so it ended up being a draw. And with 2 wins or 3 wins and 1 draw or 2 draws, I don't know, basically no losses in our round robin bracket, we had enough points to make it on through into the finals. And the first final up was a fight that I was not really looking forward to all that much. It was the Force. This is a tracked vertical spinner. And of course, one of the big things we'd done to Exilus was we had removed our HDPE front armor. That was the thing that was supposed to stop spinners. And now we've got like plastic lid off a takeout container as our armor at the front here. And he has a spinner. Yes, it's a plastic spinner, but it is still a spinner.
2, 1, go!
turns out that wasn't actually too bad. His spinner did hit and has guffed up and scratched up our takeout container armor here, but it wasn't as bad as I was worried it was going to be. He didn't really do a whole lot with the spinner, which was good. I did manage to get a track with one of the lifts, which was amazing. I love that. I love being able to steal people's tracks. And I did actually also manage to hold it and like flick to remove it, because that was the other thing, is when I take somebody's tracks, one of the things I need to make sure of is it doesn't bind up in my lifter mechanism, because that means I lose the lifter effectively, and yeah, I don't want to do that. But in this case, we did manage to hold onto it and throw it onto the arena floor, which was really, really good. Unfortunately, after that point, I had an issue, and it's an issue that I'd seen before, and again, it's one of the things I want to fix for version 2 of Exilus. I mean, I could fix it on this version if I really thought about it and actually put the time and effort into it. And that is, the weapon teeth up here are held in by one bolt. There's just one bolt going through two flexible arms into a tooth in the middle. And that is fine until the bolt backs out a little bit and the tooth manages to rotate. So it's sitting here and then it rotates up, which actually means that the diameter of the weapon increases, and it increases very slightly, but it is enough to catch on the cross brace at the back here. So that is what happened partway through this fight. After I took the track off, I think the very next attempt at a lift, I got that pivot of the weapon tooth and it changed the diameter and it started hitting the bar. Now, that doesn't mean the weapon is gone. All it means is that the weapon is no longer a fully rotary lifter. Instead, what happens is the weapon tooth can go from like here all the way back around to here, which means that if I want to lift something, I've got to like start with the weapon in exactly the right spot and flick up. It basically turns a rotary lifter into a standard lifter, but manually operated in a weird way. And so that's why I was having kind of struggles in the kind of mid section of this fight with the lifter, is because I was having to carefully position the lifter exactly where I wanted it, get in the right spot and hit him, and then try not to go too far as to jam the lifter back into the weapon spar or the spar at the back again. It was just a bit of a problem, to be honest. So that's why in the back third of this fight, I just gave up on the lifter entirely and was just pushing him around here, there, and everywhere, trying to capitalize on the fact that I'd already taken a track. I mean, for the middle section of the fight, I was going after the second track, and there was a couple of times where if I had the full rotary motion of the lifter, totally would have got the other track. But as it was, I was getting to a point where if I'd been able to keep spinning, I could have done it, but I was getting a jam up on that cross brace spar, this one in under here, with the weapon, and not able to fully capitalize on grabbing that other track and taking it off the force, which is a shame. I really would have liked to do that. And again, this is something to upgrade for Exilus version 2, is to put two bolts into these weapon tooth so that it cannot rotate on the pivot of the bolt and change the geometry of the weapon, because again, it still works, but it does make it a lot harder to use and effectively useless. Not fully useless, but just, yeah. It's definitely easier at that point to just give up on the weapon entirely and push people around. And so obviously that was a full 3-minute fight, and we won that one on judge's decision. I think mostly because we got a track and then bullied him in the last third of the fight. It is often said in combat robots that the last minute of the fight has more of an impact on judges' decisions than the first 2 minutes do. You can dominate the first half of a fight, but if you get dominated for the last half of the fight, you are probably going to lose a judge's decision. With all of that said, we are now on through into the finals. It is time to play for first or second place, and this time we are up against Double Dozer, a very low, weird wedge that if you flip it upside down, it is still a wedge. And it's also a yellow and black robot. So this was a battle of the yellow and black robots for first and second place.
3, 2, 1.
This was a fun fight. I really liked this one. As mentioned, they are a very low robot and very hard for me to get under, which meant that the first kind of half, like third half of this fight, I was having all sorts of troubles because I was going nose to nose with them constantly and they were just getting underneath me and pushing me around a bit. The wings work. This fight shows that the wings work. There was plenty of times where they could have had me over and the wings stopped that from happening. So yes, thank you, the wings, beautiful addition, love these things. Only way I was able to stay in this fight was with the wings. Yeah, so those are really good. They work, they did their job perfectly. And as mentioned, the first third of this fight, they had me dead to rights basically because I kept trying to drive at them straight away and use my weapon. And that was not working for me. In fact, so much so that they almost pitted me very early into this fight. But we did manage to get away, which was really good, and kept this fight going. There was also one that I was very worried about because they managed to tip me up and get one of the wings caught under the wall a little bit. Thankfully, because I have wheels touching the ground while I'm like this, I was able to drive back out and get myself back down again. And in the footage, it's not really all that evident because of the angle and things and because I get myself back out fairly quickly after that. But also, I wasn't the only one that got stuck under the wall. Double Dozer also got stuck under the wall. They are so low, they got stuck under the outer wall. Now, the outer wall is our metal wall for our beetle weights. And it's actually bolted down to the floor. So the fact they managed to get underneath that at all shows just how ridiculously low that robot is. It got underneath metal bolted to the wooden floor. What? How do you even? That is just ridiculously low. Of course, they managed to get themselves back out again. I really probably should have shoved them harder into the wall, but I was worried that in doing so, I might push them back out again, and I was like, oh, they're stuck, I'll just leave them. By the time I realized that they were actually getting themselves unstuck, it was too late and they were unstuck. I also managed to get a really good stack on them, stack them up in the corner, but of course that robot has been designed to drive from everywhere and there is still wheel contact when they're up on their side like that, so it wasn't a huge issue. It basically just only hampered them while I was bullying them up into that corner. And this fight is also a good a good example of that whole thing of dominate the second half of your fight. Because I would say that Double Dozer definitely had me in the first, third half of this fight, whereas I flipped the scales back on them in the later half of the fight and ended up winning this one on judge's decision, which does mean we have another first. We actually won the B-Div for ARC's November meet, which is really cool. I like that a lot, and that does mean, yes, the wings were definitely the way to go because, yeah, as it turned out, that's all I really needed. Exilus had lost a lot of fights by being stuck on its side, and now that we can no longer get stuck, or at least it's a lot harder to stick us, we are winning fights and apparently winning a whole event with Exilus, which is just great. As mentioned, I do want to do a version 2. I think I can upgrade and improve Exilus further from here. Hopefully make a version of Exilus that doesn't need wings. That'd be great. I'd love to make a version of Exilus that we just don't need the wings for. But we'll see. Like I said, that is going to be a 2023 sometime build that we will definitely get to. Anyway, closing this particular video out, we of course have the B-League Rumble.
3, 2, 1.
Not winning.
I survived the early chaos. I survived the early chaos of my start position. I literally started next to the pit. No, there's a fight here. Must get away from the fight. Let me away from the fight. Let me away from the fight. I do not want to be involved in the fight.
There we go.
No, take that fight away from me. Take that fight you're doing away from me. I can't take it up.
Yeah.
Is it a red eye? Is it a red googly eye? No, I still have both my googly eyes. Good. Oh, I know who lost an eye. Luna lost an eye. Get away from me! I don't want to be involved in any of this fighting. I don't want to be involved in any of this fighting. I don't want to be involved in any of this fighting.
Right, my leg's gone. No, I can't. I still have my leg. Oh no! You're not looking back over here. I'm talking to you! Oh no! 2 minutes left in this match.
How's it going, Billy? Yeah, pretty good. Just trying to do some cleaning up there, push the bit of fucking big right pellet as well. Like everyone's been sticking on. You been keeping her up? Yeah, not too bad. Yeah. That's with kids and the family and work.
Family work is just mainly it. This isn't coming back to for the most part. I'm really trying to make the box. I've got ideas I'm making.
I tried Ben. Yeah, my weapon. Yeah, my weapon's busted.
Is that why?
Yeah, I think the motor was moved out. It's going to be here for today, so I tried to install it. Yeah, not with something getting through the box to the boxes. Yeah, so I thought I'd go home and put half the time. I saw it happening too, and I was like, no, I'll come back later. That's right. I will fix it. It's an easy fix.
I'm trying to drive myself into the pit.
That's broken.
Okay, yeah. For good reason.
The motor, like, so I've got a gear and then the motor, yeah, and I think it's pushed it up, so there's one getting rid of this one. Yeah, well, that's right.
10, 9, 8.
I love Rumbles. Rumbles are so much fun, and they are still a great place to test things out. More so here than anywhere else. The wings definitely helped us out. And I was very happy with how well Exilus worked, despite the fact that we were being bullied left, right, and center. And I cannot remember the name of it, and I should. The Grey Grabber was the perfect counter to Exilus. They managed to grab through everything and grab wheels and stuff and just bullied us fairly relentlessly for a good couple of minutes in that fight, which was kind of fun. It's always interesting going up against new robot designs and things that challenge the design that you have, and that was definitely doing that. I should also talk about the end of this fight for Exilus. Exilus got stuck upside down. This is a way, like a space that Exilus should be able to get back out of. Unfortunately, the motor moved in the motor mounting bracket that I have. It just angled ever so slightly, and I don't think there is any damage to the teeth. It was just angling of that motor, and the teeth demeshed enough that there wasn't enough torque to get Exilus back over. In fact, it goes that way when it throws itself back over. So that's how we ended up upside down and stuck, because otherwise we were doing pretty well in that particular rumble. But there you go. That is that. Rumbles are good fun. I like rumbles. They're kind of hard to comment on because there's so much happening all the time, and I can really only talk about what happened to Exilus. Anyway, that is going to be it for this video. I hope you have enjoyed that one, and I will see you in the next video.